like we've kind of been thinking about touching on a VR conversation, but we didn't know how to frame it to bring it up on the pod. But then there was this article from Polygon where they started talking about Valve not really making games anymore and kind of being silent on the game front in terms of development. Valve basically had like two of their big writers leave the studio within the past year. And so what Polygon was trying to say, like maybe this is a signal from Valve that they are no longer developing games in a single player manner. But they are developing 3 games right now in the VR realm. And like they're in long development. They're not just like tech demos or like, hey, look at these shiny things in VR. They're like legitimate games. So like, what do you think? Do you think Valve's in the best position in the industry to go into VR?
So actually, I feel like one of the things that the article that we are talking about hit on is that Valve can do what it wants to do.
Yes.
It has all of the choices. It can take its time. It can not take its time. It can throw whatever it wants out there. And so the fact that they are focusing on 3 VR games, and they've talked about that, I think that that's really interesting. I haven't personally jumped heavily into VR yet. I haven't really spent any time with it. I don't have VR headset.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, even as we are looking for games to review week after week, we find a lot of titles that seem interesting, and then we realize that they are VR driven. That you need to be playing these in virtual reality. And so I think it's interesting because I almost wonder if Valve is concentrating so heavily on VR and they are not really talking too much about anything else, they can invest where they want to invest, then I'm assuming they think that VR is where gaming is headed.
Yes.
And I don't know if I agree with that, I guess.
Well,
I don't know if
I think it's hard to agree with that because we haven't seen a game developed in VR that really pushes it and shows us what VR kind of is meant to be and can be. Right now, we just kind of have like tech demos that's like, oh, it's just kind of a short first-person shooter type of deal in VR. And it's just like, it's a bells and whistles thing. And I think Valve, because they set themselves up so well, they can take the time to really think about what you can do with VR and why it sets us apart as a platform. So that's why I'm like extremely interested. And I think that it's a little like when the article says it's like right place, right time, like Valve is a very forward-thinking company. The reason Steam is as good as it is, remember like 10 years, 15 years back when Steam was released, no one was doing something like that. And they said, no, this is what internet delivery can be. So I think they take that mentality and they apply it to anything they do. That's why I'm very excited for their VR movements because they're going to do that with VR. They know this is what everyone else is doing, but they have an idea in their heads on what it can really be. And I think Gabe Newell is just a majestic human being, and I can't wait to see what worlds he puts me in virtually.
Oh
I get a little misty about Gabe.
When I think VR though, and this is outdated, like me. So I'm
just an old man.
I'm just an old lady. But when I think about VR, I think about going to the old shopping mall, the big old mall that got put down, and they had that arcade going, and oh man, if I was good, I got to go to the arcade and I got to get some quarters because people still had quarters.
If you did your chores.
If I did my chores, and I would go and I would put those quarters in the machines, and I would only do the virtual reality games if I had been really good because they were expensive. They took way more quarters than the traditional arcade games. And it was cool and I liked it, but I think about those games and I don't know, I just don't. I'm like, we've kind of been there before with gaming, and it didn't totally take off, and maybe I'm just, like I said, maybe I'm just old and I'm not forward thinking enough. And I just like my TV the way it is.
I like my controller and my eyeballs where they are.
I like my eyeballs and I like my controller and I like to be on my couch. Gosh darn it. But I don't know why I just went redneck there. But
because they're living in the past, and we all know it.
oh yeah, that's right. You're correct. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm not thrilled about the idea of having to have a headset on in order to game. And there are so many games coming out that are exciting, and I don't know how I feel about it yet. I mean, what are your feelings towards VR? Is that what you want? Do you want to have to sit down and have a VR headset on and be in a different reality, or do you think that gaming will continue to have a place with just you and your PC?
I think it'll have a place. I think every company's kind of pushing this thing where you like move around in place and stuff. I don't think that's where the VR market's going to be. I think it's going to be sitting at your computer with like a headset type of thing on, and then you're in the world. And like that might not be possible. You might get like motion sickness or whatever. But I definitely don't want to be moving around my place. Like it seems like a novelty to kind of be like turning my body and shooting. But I'm not a big fan of VR only because it doesn't seem like that big of a jump. Like, hey, yeah, now I can look around in my world. It's cool. And then like the next day I'm like, well, that was good. Let me just go back to my PC and play Overwatch or something. So
right.
I'm just...
Yeah, it's just not, I don't know. It's not there yet. I mean, though, I will say that if Valve's concentrating on 3 different games right now,
yeah,
and they can do whatever the heck they want, these games have a chance to be amazing. And if
yes.
I could have been Link in Zelda, if I could have felt like I was Link in Zelda, that would I think have just changed my world. Zelda already, Ocarina of Time already changed my world as a youngling, and I'm ready for it to change my world again as an adult if I can suddenly be Link.
Yeah.
But I don't want to pursue Zelda. I'm gonna put that out there. I want to pursue the horse breeder, Marin.
What?
Yeah, I just, I know this isn't really related to what we're talking about, but I just need it documented somewhere. Marin, I love you.
I need it for record.
Yeah, I need this recorded.
Yeah, but 100% Half-Life 3 is going to come out on VR. That's what they're working on. It's got to be in some fashion. And I'll bet money they're working on an MMO because I think MMO are like the big platform for VR. That's where it's going to be.
Yeah, that would be pretty fun.
Because Facebook's already working on their like, hey, we're in Facebook and you're in virtual reality, you're in this room. That's going to be the next push forward to MMOs that like changes the market probably, is like a VR MMO game.